This is the January 2020 video edition of the Iowa General Fund Monthly Revenue Memo. My name is Jeff Robinson, Senior Fiscal Analyst with the Iowa Legislative Services Agency, the nonpartisan support agency of the Iowa Legislature. This video covers Iowa General Fund revenue for fiscal year 2020 as that year stands through the end of January of 2020. Net revenue on a fiscal year basis means year-to-date gross receipts minus tax refunds issued, adjusted for deposits and refunds that occurred after June 30, but were considered part of the previous fiscal year. Net general fund receipts increased $69.9 million, or 9.3% for the month of January, when compared to January of 2019. A $45 million increase in sales and use tax deposits and a $10 million decrease in corporate income tax refunds provided much of the month's net revenue boost. On a fiscal year basis, net revenue for the first 7 months of the fiscal year increased $310 million, which equates to a 7.8% rate of growth. Sales and use tax growth, aided by an expansion of the tax base that in large part took effect January 1 of 2019, accounts for $145 million of the growth so far this fiscal year, while corporate income tax deposits are $44 million ahead. Another source of net revenue growth has been a much reduced level of corporate sales, use, and bank franchise tax refunds issued this fiscal year compared to last. This combination of tax refunds totaled $166 million through the end of January for each of the past 2 fiscal years. But for fiscal year 2020, at $80 million, the total is less than half that amount. January 2020 marks the 2-year anniversary of the federal income tax reduction that took effect January 1 of 2018. And the 1-year anniversary of the Iowa income tax reduction that took effect January 1 of 2019. Both tax reductions required a lowering of the amount of income tax withheld from paychecks. While the federal tax cut lowered the amount of withholding for federal purposes, Iowa's tax law that allows the deduction of federal income taxes from state taxable income means that Iowa income tax withholding increased when federal withholding decreased. That federal deductibility impact on Iowa income tax withholding receipts is shown between the black and red arrows of this chart. The black arrow shows that prior to federal tax cuts, Iowa withholding was growing at a $125 million annual rate. By the time that federal reduction was in place for a full year, the red arrow shows that Iowa withholding tax revenue was growing at a $300 million annual pace. The reduction in state taxes became effective at the red arrow, and in the ensuing year, the rate of withholding tax decreased as expected, and over the past year, withholding growth was negative $120 million. With passage of the 1-year anniversary of the state tax reduction, withholding growth should now be expected to return to positive growth. Through the end of January, the 7.8% fiscal year growth in net general fund revenue is above the current projection of 2.1% growth for the full fiscal year. The current rate of net revenue growth should come down somewhat, as the January 2019 income tax reduction is expected to have additional negative impacts on the amount of net individual income tax revenue received when tax year 2019 returns are filed in the spring. Beyond that, it remains to be seen whether the $86 million decrease in corporate sales and franchise tax refunds that has occurred so far in fiscal year 2020 is real, or instead simply represents a delay in tax refund issuance. To the extent that the decrease is caused by delay, some of the net general fund excess growth will disappear as those tax refunds are issued. Goodbye, thank you, and please check out the next monthly video memo in early March.